the road to basketball for me honestly started. I was just that weekend pickup player. I played with brothers from our church. Every Saturday morning we'd get together and play. And by this time, Drew was 5 or 6, and he would just tag along. And my wife and some women in our church, they would come in after us, and they had a volleyball team, and Drew would just stay and play. And I can remember there was a brother who went to our church who was a high school basketball coach at the time, and I asked him, I said, "Hey, looks like my son's enjoying this game. What should I do?" He said, "Put him in the camps." So I started taking Drew around to camps when he was younger, 6, 7, 8 years old, and his skill level developed great, and he was pretty good at it. And he's 8 years old now, and I said, well, maybe we'll put him in a league. So we went to the rec league, and the first rec league we went to on the west side of Akron they wouldn't let him in because Drew actually was 7. He didn't turn 8 until January. They said, you got to be 8 now. And so, but I took him to Ed Davis Community Center, and Jerry Rowland was the director at the time, who's now gone on to, rest in peace, Jerry. But Jerry said, okay, I'll let him play under one condition. And I said, what's that? He said, you got to be the coach. So, hey, as a dad wanting to do right, what was right for my son, I said, sure, I'll do it. And, that first year in the rec league, we were 1-9. That was how I started out my coaching career. We were 1-9, and what was funny about it is all the teams had already been picked. So Jerry's going to give me a player from their team. So what player I got from all the other teams. The one that may not have been as skilled and they may not have wanted, but it was a lot of fun, and I enjoyed it. And the next year, because of work, I couldn't really coach, but I was still that dad who would come around to the rec league. And one Saturday, there was some, we're at Ed Davis, is in the neighborhood, and there was 2 white guys sitting in the stands. They're taking notes on players. And afterwards, he asked me about my son. He said, hey, he's a pretty good player. I'm looking for some 5th graders to play on a travel team. And actually, Drew was only in 4th grade. And I said, well, he's in 4th grade. He's pretty good. He said, I don't know. I'm really looking for some older kids. But I said, well, give him a chance. Let him come try out. So Drew goes and tries out, and he makes the team. And they're playing around. And, near the end of the June, the team kind of falls apart. And some of the parents wanted to. I didn't know anything about travel basketball at the time. You asked, was basketball part of my upbringing? No, I grew up playing football. I'm from East Liverpool, Ohio, and that's all we had was football, and you ran track. That's what you did. And my family, you played football, you ran track, and so didn't know a whole lot about travel basketball, but I enjoyed that time with my son. And what happens is the team kind of fell apart and was falling apart. And I told the guy, I said, well, we lost a few players. I said, well, I know another kid that I think, will help the team out. And he said, well, bring him to a practice. And so I go, and Drew and LeBron were rivals at the time. They were playing on different rec teams. They were competing against each other every Saturday. And you could just tell that they were special, and they played the game really well. So I can remember, it's wild, it's 28 years ago, but going to Elizabeth Park, Drew and we knocked on Gloria's door, and she's looking out, and who's this man coming up to my door? I don't know who he is. And luckily for us, LeBron kind of peeped around the corner, and him and Drew knew each other, and they kind of caught eyes, and I explained to her what I wanted to do. And she trusted me enough to get in the car with me and come to that practice so she could kind of get a feel for what was going on. And so that's pretty much how it started. And we didn't really get to play too much. The team kind of, the travel season kind of ended. And that next September, the team started to get together again. And they're now in 5th grade. And the coach had decided to go on and coach in middle school. And the parents said to me, you know, I was that dad who would come to all the practices, help out. Why don't you coach the team? So, hey, I jumped at the opportunity, not knowing what it meant, but just being that dad who seeing my son loved it, and I wanted to help out and be a part. And so that's how it all grew up. Started with me, and you know, I could see early on that LeBron and Drew, they were eating this stuff up. So. You know, I figured I needed to find out a little bit more about this game, how it worked. So I started reading books and getting videos, and any kind of coach who I get near, I'd bend their ear. And so that's how I grew up as early on as a coach, just asking a lot of questions and trying to put the kids in the right situation. I understood enough that I didn't know about my own game of basketball. I was just a pickup player, but I understood enough to know that I had to keep my ego out of it. So I would take the kids to this guy to work them out. I'd take him somewhere. I didn't allow myself to get involved into so much that it was about me, because it was never about me. It was always about them, and that's how the journey began. They would play against each other in the rec league, and you could see he was talented, a little taller than the other kids, but super athletic, and very difficult to stop. At that point in his development, it wasn't that he couldn't pass the ball. It was just that, hey, the team needed him to score it, and he scored it. And they would be going battling back and forth. And when I had the opportunity to coach him, I saw that, he wanted to know. He wanted to learn more. There was always that thirst to be better, and that was at whatever he did. He was probably one of the most competitive kids I've ever been around. I tell people all the time now, he and Drew would be playing in our driveway, and they would almost be in fights because both of them was that competitive, and it got to a point where they kind of agreed that they wouldn't play each other anymore because it was that bad, and they kind of built a friendship around that they're going to compete. That competition with them kind of was pulling them apart rather than to bringing them together. Yeah. Wow. So, early on, he was in the rec league, and I knew Frankie Walker, who Frankie was the coach of the other team. Then he played out of Summit Lake, and Drew played out of Ed Davis. And the rec league in Akron at that time was really, really good. I mean, there was a lot of good young players throughout the city, and LeBron's family situation was tough, and he and Frank and Gloria had an agreement, and LeBron went to live with Frank for that year, and it kind of settled things down, because LeBron will tell you, the year before he probably missed more days of school than he actually was in school. So having that year and that structure in Frank's house was big, and that's in fourth grade. So fifth grade rolls around and travel basketball starts, and once we started going, and I could see that we had a pretty good group. LeBron loved it, and he started spending more and more time at our house and hanging out with us. And by this time, Gloria's situation had gotten a little better. She had found a place to stay, so Bron was with her, but he spent a lot of time at our house too. So, those guys, they were 11 years old, and we were playing in tournaments, and one of the dads said, well, why don't we go and try to play in the AAU National Championships? And I didn't know nothing about it. I'm like, well, where is that at? He said, well, this year it's going to be in Cocoa Beach. So, we played in the qualifying tournament and won it, and we added a couple kids to the team and piled them in our van, and I had a company car, and my wife drove our daughters in the company car, and I had the boys, and 7 of them in a van. We drove to Cocoa Beach, and we played in a national championship, and there were 64 teams from all over the country there, and it was like the Olympics. They have the teams marching in, and I'm like, wow, this is beyond my greatest expectation. I didn't understand what I was getting into, but we played pretty well. We finished ninth in the country, and from that point forward, we started talking about winning the national championship. Wow. And that's what brought them together, that desire to win a national championship. So those next few years, we kept competing for that so-called national championship, and 12 and under, we finished 10th, and 13 and under, we were terrible. Not that we were bad, but the boys were kind of feeling themselves. They were growing up, and there was some, we went to one hotel, and we were playing in Memphis. My wife will never let me forget this. We're playing in Memphis, and we're in the AAU Nationals, and we didn't win our pool. The first time we didn't win our pool, we lost our pool. So they had, the losers bracket. They had another, whole competition for the losers bracket, and we go to the losers bracket and lost the first. It's July 4th, if you can imagine. We're in Memphis. We're supposed to be after the game going to get some Memphis barbecue, and I'm telling them, get on the bus, get in the vans. Bus. There was a van. Get in the vans. We're going home, and we drove home that day. It was, I think back of it, maybe it wasn't the right thing for me to do, but at that moment, it was, I needed to make them understand that if you're going to be committed to something, you got to be committed to it. And they, you can't, talk about it, you got to have that commitment. And when you don't have that commitment, then there's consequences to your actions. So we drove home, we didn't get barbecue and or have a good time, but the next year we played the AAU Nationals down in Florida. We went all the way to the championship game and lost at the last second. In the last second shot, we lost the game. But by that time, the guys had made a decision that they were going to go to high school together. Well, the championship. Okay. The championship. They hands down the championship here in Cleveland. And he had wanted somewhere else, but to come back to Cleveland and to get it done here, you couldn't write a better story. You couldn't write a better story. And it's funny. I was just at the foundation recently, and there's a big picture of that the team during that championship, after that championship game, and he's sitting in the midst of the team, and they're all around, and his two young sons are there, but the tears are rolling down his face. We were in high school, his senior year. Had just played a game in Philadelphia, one of our travels. We just played at the Palestra, and we were eating somewhere after the game, and he came up to my wife and I and said that I want to be like y'all. I want to have a family like y'all. So that's just special. That was a special moment for my wife and I, and to see him with his family, that means the world to me, because he saw something in us that he's carried on, and he has it with his sons and his daughter and his wife, and that's special, because maybe in some kind of small way, our example while he was growing up had an impact. I tell people all the time that the one thing that LeBron always kind of understood coming up, once he saw that, okay, I can be really good at this game of basketball, that the discipline to put in the work. We always talked about there's no shortcut, Bron. It's about the work. And every time you take a moment off, somebody else is out working you. And that's the attitude that he bought into early. And it was when we did the documentary years ago, and I had the privilege of traveling around the world with him and Nike to promote really the documentary and his shoes. We were in China. Well, not just in China, but everywhere we went, he always worked. He'd find a gym, and he put in time every day. And that's the only way you last 20 years. That's the only way. There's no shortcut to this. It's not magic. It's not magic. It's about understanding that, there's work involved. And if I want to be the best, then I have to put in the time and work at it. And those are the things that, I can remember as a little kid when they were little kids, that when we first started talking about winning the national championship, I said, look, y'all got to go around and start talking about this thing. You got to start telling people we're going to win the national championship. And they were like, why? I said, because you got to say it. You got to be, if you're not man enough to say it, it ain't ever going to happen. You got to be willing to say it. You got to be willing to say it, because if you say it, now that puts you out there. Now you got to put some work in, because folks they're going to call you on, oh, I thought you said you was going to. No, if you're going to say it, you got to put in the work. And LeBron said once to me, once he got in the league, he said, I want to be the greatest of all time. And that's, hey, and he said it. I said, hey, I respect it, because that's what we talked about it when he was a kid, being willing to make those kind of statements. And to make that kind of statement, got to back it up. Oh, I'm biased, hey, I'm biased. Hey, it's LeBron James. And I love Magic, I love Michael, I love Oscar Robertson back, because, I'm that old, I love those guys and what they brought to the game. I guess what I seen LeBron bring is that he's that combination, I guess, of Magic and Michael. He's that combination, and he can pass it with the best of them and make you better, because I'm going to get you the ball where you need it. But when I have to get a bucket, I'm going to go get you a bucket too. It's being the best he can be, and you know what? When you are committed to something, and I don't know, I think the number has become, been brought to light because you're close to the number. I don't think that number was his motivation. I think the motivation was to be the best player I can be, and if you work at that, then all those other things happen. There was and I'm sure I'm going to get these numbers wrong, but I heard Dr. J say this. And this was a while ago, and someone was asking about, great players, greatness. And he said, well, when you consider what LeBron James has done, it's like taking your team to the Super Bowls 8, 9 years in a row. Because you took your team to 6 finals in a row. That's the same as going to 6 Super Bowls, 6 World Series in a row. So, that speaks volumes about who you are and what you're able to do with bringing different groups of guys together to work for that one goal, and that one goal, and understanding it's bigger than any individual. That's why I think he's the greatest of all time. Well, hey, he's put Akron on the map, but and he's done it in a way there's some gracefulness about it. There's some, it's not that, it's not a headline, but it's a lifeline. And he's given Akron a lifeline. What he's done with the school and all he's given kids a lifeline to do something for their own self. So yeah, I think that, he could have been easily, forgot about Akron. I mean, hey, and it wouldn't have been a bad thing, but, Akron has meant that much to him that he wants to, do something meaningful for it. And we're thankful, all of us, myself included, because, everything that he does, is doing, has helped all of us. He still helps here. Hey, we're sitting in a gym that, this isn't the gym he played in. Yeah, this isn't what he played in. Hey, no, he played on a wood floor that was from 1958. Yeah, and that group of bleachers over there was an insurance claim waiting to happen. You pulled them out from the back to the front. And when they put in the lights in here, I realized that for a lot of years we was playing in the dark. So yeah, this was a great gift, and so those kind of things, hey, you do. He's done it, and he's been willing to share, and that's important. That's important because there's nothing that says you have to do that, but when you want to do it, it makes it even more special. By that time, after that national championship game, you know, they had already made up their mind that they were going to come to high school together. And, you know, they had built a little reputation around Akron. People kind of knew them. And, you know, honestly, we were supposed to go to the local public school. That's where we were going to go to high school. And, you know, it didn't work out. I was on the staff at Bookto High School. And, you know, my son being a little guy, he, you know, I'd take him over there, you know, while 8th grade for open gyms, and he just got to feel that they weren't going to give him a chance. And, you know, he comes to me right before the season starts, says, Dad, I don't want to come to Bookto. I'm going to go to St. V because Coach Danbrought, he's going to give me a chance. He doesn't care about how big I am. And, you know, I remember I went back to Harvey Sims, who was the coach at Bookto, and I said, yo, man, you got to talk to my son. He's acting like he don't want to come. Well, you know, Harvey made a decision that, don't worry about it, we'll be okay. And Harvey thought that if he could convince LeBron to come, that was what was most important. And so he went after LeBron, and Drew and then Shion decides that he's not coming to Bookto because he had an older brother that was on the Bookto junior varsity, and he felt like his older brother wasn't getting treated right. So he says he's going to St. V. And once Drew and Shion said they were coming, LeBron was coming too. So that's kind of how it all happened. And but as I was saying, I thought that last game of AAU that summer before their freshman year was going to be the last game that I got to coach them. And you know, so they're here at St. V now, and Keith Danbrought comes to me and says, you know, they're your guys. Why don't you come and be on my staff with me? You know, they were, St. V's always been pretty good. Jerome Lane had won the first state championship back in '84, and Curtis Wilson was a big-time player, went to Ohio State, and Jerome goes to Pitt. So that team was really, really good, and that was 1984. Then, you know, they had another team that went to the Final Four in '88. And then when Keith took over, they at least made it to the regional final, and they had really good players that had been here. They just hadn't been able to figure out how to win. So that first year with Keith, with those 4 freshmen, Willie, McGee, Drew, Shion, and LeBron, they win a state championship. And from there, the next year, they win another one. And so now you got this thing rolling. And you know, the crazy part was my wife and I, we were every year she would take us to you know, they would have the parade of homes in Akron because, you know, we always talked about building ourselves a house. So I'm at the parade of homes, and I get a call from a newspaper reporter and said, hey, Keith's taking a job at the University of Akron. Are you going to take the boys and leave St. V? And I'm like, hey, I don't know what you're talking about. So I go, and by the time, you know, we get through the parade of homes, Keith calls me and he says, hey, it's true. I'm going to the University of Akron, and I want you to take over the team and you become the head coach. And, you know, honestly, in that moment, I said, no, I don't know. I don't think I'm ready. You know, having never played organized basketball, just been a pickup player and only coached in AAU, I didn't think I was quite ready, you know, to coach a team of that caliber. I mean, they were ranked 23rd in the nation when I took over. So it was, you know, definitely going to be a challenge, and I wasn't real sure of myself. But, you know, in your life, you always have, you know, those moments when, you know, someone will speak into your life, and for me, it happened to be my wife. And she said, "How can you say no?" She said, "This is, you know, this is the God honoring all those years of you driving those boys up and down the highway, finding a place to practice, and you know." She said, "How can you say no?" And I needed to hear that in that moment, and so I accepted the opportunity to come here and coach. And I recognized that early on, if we won, it was going to be because it was Keith. They were Keith Danbrought's kids, and if we lost, it's going to be my fault. No, because the travel basketball, it's a bunch of dads. It's a bunch of dads. I mean, got dads who are doing the same thing I was doing, so I didn't feel too much out of place. But when you got to the high school level, I'm feeling like, well, now I'm going to be coaching against coaches who come up. This is what they played basketball maybe their whole life, and this is what their desire. I'm at that point. I was 45 years old. It had been in corporate America for 20-some years, and really, this was kind of what I was doing with my son. I never looked at it as as a career, as something to do, but over the years of coaching, I've recognized that this is I understand my purpose, my reason for being involved in all of this, and it's always was bigger than basketball, and even when they were younger, we made an agreement, me and my assistant coaches, that what we would do as Christian men, that we would try to make sure that we lived how we lived in front of them was, it was a positive. I didn't want to be that coach who's hollering, screaming at refs and acting a fool. And not that that I didn't have my moments, but it was more important for me to help them understand that there's a way to go about all of this. And so we were very conscious of everything that we did in front of the boys, because we traveled, and that first group of guys when they were 11 and 12 years old, most of them were from single parent families. So we were concerned about what kind of example we were showing them as far as the men who we are, how I treat my wife, how I treat the server in the restaurant who messes up my order, let alone how I treat a referee who make a bad call. So that was all part of all of it, and the kids, what we saw early on is, especially with Bron, is they were always watching. They were waiting, they were kind of, you could kind of see they were taking notes. How are you doing this? What are you doing? And so, that was early on. And then when you get to high school, and now, we're on this, when I took over, we're on a national stage, and, I had no clue, how to handle this, because we were the first, ESPN game, national televised game, we're the first. There's no one to go and ask, how do you handle this? So I tell people all the time, there were times I wanted to go up in my backyard and just scream, because there was no one to give me an answer. So, we did the best that we could, and tried to do it in the way that was, most respectful to everyone included, including those moms who entrusted us with their sons. That was big, for me, because, Gloria didn't have to trust me with her son. She saw something in me that she gave me that opportunity to be involved in his life at an impactful age. And, she didn't have to do that. And I'm thankful that she did. And, and I'm prayerful that over those years we did something right that would help him grow into the man that he's become. Oh, wow. I think the one thing that, that always impressed me, and the way that I coached, was, he was always the best player. From that first AAU game that I coached him, I could see he's the best player. But I never coached him any different than the other guys. If he messed up, he had to run. Everybody had to run. We wasn't going to lower the standard. We wasn't going to, treat him any differently. And and the one thing that we always taught, that the game was 5-on-5. You run into some of that. You see it out there. That you got the dad coaching the AAU team, and the son is the best player, and he does whatever he wanted to do. That's not how we wanted to do this. LeBron was the best player, but he had to live up to the standard. And if you didn't live up to the standard, then there were consequences. And that's just how we did it. And so I guess what I see that, we were able to help him to grow into was the recognition that the game is 5-on-5. I got to trust my teammates, and we're going to be good together. There's a bunch of guys who can be good by themselves, but the team isn't good. And, you see a lot of guys, even in the league, that, they get theirs, but the team never wins. And LeBron was never part of that. He was always part of a winning team and a winning program. And, winning, as a group was important. And, I can remember one day driving from an AAU practice. We were on East Avenue here in Akron, and, it had been a pretty intense practice. And I just said to Bron, I said, yo, man, Bron, look, listen, if you pass the ball, everyone's going to want to play with you. And, as an 11-year-old kid, he got it. Because he had that ability, but, he's always having to score for the other team, the rec team that he played on. He always had this, but for this group, I saw that, okay, there's another part of your game, and he could pass it, and he could make guys better passing it, and he got it. And I really never had to say anything else to him about that. And, if there's anything that I see today in his game that, I don't want to say I'm responsible for, but I've been part of, was that, hey, share the ball, and great things can happen. And that hey, the game is 5-on-5, and I get so tired of when you hear some educated basketball commentators say, well, he should be more selfish in that situation. That's not how he was brought up. He wasn't brought up like that. It was trust your teammates, make that extra pass. Those are the things that's where the greatness is. And to see that he continues to play the game that way, that's what makes it special for me. Over the years, I've gotten a little better, but I still try to read and figure some things out from other guys who have a better mind about it than me. I'm not one to ever believe that once you stop learning, you stop growing. And I want to keep growing. I want to keep learning. So, hey, I read the books, I watch the videos, I talk to my coaches, and the great thing about it with me now is former players. You got Romeo and Drew, my son, who played professionally overseas, and I don't have as many conversations with Bron because I'm not as close to him, anymore. But we're having those conversations with Drew and Rome and some of the other guys who've been in the program who've played overseas. They know more about what's going on the floor than I do, and I understand that. They see it from a whole different perspective than I have, and so I have great conversations with them, and I'm all ears. I'm not telling them, I'm listening, because they have a perspective that I don't have, and that's important. And it's great to have those guys come around and be willing to share with the team. Even early on, LeBron would come to a practice, and it would be crazy, to see the guys' eyes light up. LeBron James just walked into your high school practice, and to see those guys, wow, LeBron is here. Then, Romeo would come back and he would help out, and my son Drew would come back, and that was big. And just this week, Jakar Sampson, who graduated, he was here for his first 2 years in 2009, 2010. Then he left in 2011 and went to a prep school, but he played 7 years in the NBA, and he's playing in China now. He comes in 2 days this week to go up and down with the kids. And, he's a pro, and, they're on the court and they're seeing those things. So, hey, and he's having comments and he's saying things, and, I understand that greatness that this program has is because of all those guys coming back, sharing, coming back. Even, there's guys that come back like Romeo Travis's nephew. He was here yesterday at practice. He's a football player at Akron U, and he led us to state championships with Malachi Branham, who's now playing with the Spurs. But he was on the 2020 state championship, and he comes in yesterday, and just going up and down with the guys, they're saying, wow. He brings a different thing, a different level of competition, a different understanding, and so it's always great to have those guys keep coming back, and that's what's made the program great. I encourage them to come back. I give them a floor if they have anything they want to say to the guys. They've been here, they know me, they've done it for me. They're seeing things from another perspective now, so that they're outside of the high school game, and some of them are outside of the college game, and those are important moments for the group that's here now.